Mario Draghi has told business leaders in London just the last week that we will do whatever it takes.
I call the honourable member Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I rise to speak in this debate. I want to speak briefly about the central, if you like, economic strategy of the John Key-John Banks government. And the central economic strategy of the John Key-John Banks government is around asset sales. And so what the John Key-John Banks government have as their central pillar is the privatisation of the assets. And this has been justified on financial grounds. And I think it's worth referring to the government's own books as to what the fiscal impact will be of going ahead with this privatisation program. Because I think the government has, misled New Zealanders about what is the real fiscal impact of this privatisation if it goes forward. And if you look at the Budget Economic and Fiscal Update from 24 March 2012 on page 42, you will see there Treasury's estimate of the actual impacts of this privatisation program if it goes ahead. And what you'll see is that in 2016, the estimate is the loss to the Crown as a result of privatisation would be $360 million in a single year because of the foregone profits. And then the savings, because of the reduced finance costs, would be about $250 million. And so what this means is that if the privatisation of the assets goes ahead, the Crown position will be worse off by $100 million per year. That, I think, puts to a lie the fundamental argument that the government has put forward that this is a fiscally rational strategy. So when the John Key-John Banks government tells us that it makes sense to go ahead with this privatisation program fiscally, the lie is to be found in the government's own books. Because when you look at the government's own books, the estimates put out by Treasury...
Member just needs to be very careful about saying the word lie. Speaker's Rulings 42, on page 42. So I'll just bring the member back. Just be very careful about that.
Thank you, Mr Chair. And so to look at page 42 of the Government Budget Economic and Fiscal Update, you will see there the actual fiscal impacts of the privatisation program. And I think it is worth repeating the numbers in this table because in this debate around asset sales and privatisation, there have been a lot of arguments put forward that this makes fiscal sense. But when you look at the actual numbers, you realise this isn't the case. And I would like to repeat those numbers, both for the benefit of the government members who obviously haven't looked at it very closely. If the John Key-John Banks government goes ahead with privatisation, it means in 2016, just in a single year, that the foregone profits as a result of it will be $360 million. $360 million. Now, it means the estimated finance cost savings, so the benefit to the government, will be about $250 million. So $360 million worse off and $250 million in savings for finance costs. What that means is that the net impact on the government's operating balance will be worse off by about $100 million in a single year. Now, this is a government that says it's going to veto the extension of paid parental leave because it's going to cost $108 million a year. Right? This is the government that says, oh no, we can't afford to help working families and new mums and dads with paid parental leave because it costs too much. It would cost about $108 million a year. And here they are, as a direct result of the asset sale program that the John Key-John Banks government is promoting, the government books will be worse off by about $100 million per year. That is the fundamental fiscal reality of this asset sale program. So when people are considering whether this makes any fiscal sense, whether it makes sense in terms of the government's position, in terms of the government books, you need to not listen to the rhetoric from the government. You need to look at the actual figures that are printed in the Budget Economic and Fiscal Update, 24 March 2012, put out by the New Zealand government, and I refer you again to page 42, and you will see in black and white the reality of the impact of the privatisation program. So this privatisation program, which remember went through on one vote, 61 votes to 60, the vote of John Banks, right, went through with one vote. the impact of that will be that the fiscal position of the New Zealand government is worse off by about $100 million every year going forward into the future as a result of privatisation. That is the truth that underpins the John Key, John Banks privatisation program. And that's the truth that we need to keep at the heart of our minds as we have this debate around asset sales going forward. We actually look at the budget documents rather than the rhetoric. That's the foundation.
I call Todd McLeay.
Thank you. It gives me